Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Metal Magdalene with Jet right here on Metal Messiah Radio. This summer here in the show, we're running a Summer of Drummers series, and right now we have with us drummer Gus Rios. Now, Gus is the drummer for the band Gruesome and also in Create a Kill, who we will be talking about a little later on tonight. So anyways, as always, welcome to the show, Gus.
And as always, a pleasure to be here.
So, Gus, before we get into all the drum stuff, tell us a little about Create a Kill. I mean, where did this idea come from, and how long have you been, putting this together?
Well, it's funny. Just recently when I started doing some interviews, it's been so long I literally forgot. Basically, now that I remember, I wrote a bunch of songs for the Malevolent Creation album called Invidious Dominion. And I think I had written like as many as 5 or 6 songs for that record. And in the end, and I totally understand this, but Phil wasn't about to let me write half the record, which I get it. It's his band. But I remember playing the stuff that I had recorded for Eric Rutan, and Eric was like, dude, this stuff's really killer. And that record was a particularly thrashy sounding record. So I had like 2 or 3 songs left over. And after I quit Malevolent back in 2014, I just thought to myself, it'd be cool to just take these same songs and re-record them with a guitar tuned higher up, in E flat, which is like the Slayer tuning, a half step down. And when I re-recorded it, I was like, wow, this sounds like really killer aggressive thrash. And I remember that Alex Marquez, who we all know is one of the legendary drummers of the death metal scene. And he's a, super good friend of mine. And I asked him to do vocals on a couple of on these songs, and they came out great. And then I just wrote a bunch more. Almost simultaneously, the Gruesome thing took off, and I sort of threw it on the back burner until now. And, now Repulsive Echo is going to put out the record finally, and I'm pretty stoked about it.
So tell us, how you went about getting all the band members together and the guests on this album. You guys got some great guests on this album as well.
Really, it's just I'm super fortunate to have really good musicians as friends. And Tobias from Vomitory and Cut Up is, a really, really good friend of mine. We toured together back in 2009. And he plays, the initial idea was actually to have, I wanted to kind of get a collective of drummers that play guitar and have this whole album of just everybody doing everything, which logistically didn't really work out. So he was gracious enough to, record a song and send it over to me. And the same thing with Dirk. I did a drum festival with him here in Miami, and Dirk is probably one of the nicest human beings on literally planet Earth, and probably one of the best drummers on planet Earth. And again, he was just gracious and cool enough to record a song for me and send me the tracks. And, I wanted to kind of get all my friends on it. I wanted to get Sean Reinert, Derek Roddy, and but it's tough to make that happen. So, once I got to 10 songs, I was like, all right, well, let me just kind of button this up and get this out, kind of a thing.
And now, how would you describe your music to people?
I would say, if you took, early Malevolent Creation, which is basically Slayer on crack, and just kind of throttle the dial more towards thrash metal. It's kind of like that. It's just really, really aggressive, fast thrash metal, with a lot of hints of death metal. There's some blast beats and some death metal vocals. I was always more of a fan of the more extreme thrash metal bands back in the day. I was listening to Metallica and Megadeth and all those kinds of bands. And then when I heard Rain and Blood in '87, I was like, no, this is where I'm at. And not that any of those other bands aren't good, but I just kind of gravitated towards, the early Creator and Dark Angel and Devastation from Texas, just kind of the bands that had zero melody and we're just going for it. And I just wanted to kind of recreate, do that today, because it just seems to me like I'm not hearing it out of anybody right now. And it's also the production style. Like a lot of bands today that play thrash metal have really polished sounding records, and I just didn't want any of that. To me, the thrash metal records I liked the most had a lot of grit, and they were ugly, and they didn't really sound that great, but man, it really added to the aggression of it,
And so now we're so used to you on drums all the time. So tell us a little bit about how you went about writing guitar parts now for this band, and did you write the drum parts as well, Gus?
I got a guitar a full 2 years before I ever got a drum set.
Oh, cool.
So when I was like 9 years old, my mother bought my brother and I one guitar for Christmas. And, my brother and I only like a year apart. So, then we got kind of good. We took some guitar lessons, and, I'm like learning to play all my favorite Slayer songs and whatever. Then we both got our own guitars, and we're both still playing guitar. And then that's sort of when I was like 12 years old, it was a thing where it was like, man, one of us should probably play drums if we're going to start a band. And for me, it was just a thing when I sat down behind a drum kit for the first time. I was truly just in love with the drums, and obviously I've sort of made it my main thing. But the whole entire time, I play guitar. Like the 3 songs that ended up making it onto the Invidious Dominion record, I actually recorded the guitars on them. That's me playing on the record. So I'm a guitar player, I guess, but you would never know it.
And so, did you write both parts for this album?
As far like the songs I play drums on, obviously, yeah, but the songs that Toby and Dirk did, I had sent them the demos, and they pretty much stuck to what I had sent them, but they obviously added their own flavor to it, which is what I wanted. You know what I mean? I didn't want Toby to play like me or anything, because he's got a great style, and so does Dirk. And that's the other reason I kind of picked those two dudes, is because they're both, all three of us at different points in time have had great conversations in length about how much we love Dave Lombardo. And, that's really the vibe I was going for, is just this like semi-punk rock, chaotic, aggressive drumming, which I think Dave Lombardo just really defines. And, like they're able to play the drums like a thrash drummer, not just a death metal drummer, if that makes any sense. So, like I said, I just sent them the demos I did, and they took them and did their thing to them.
And also you had mentioned that Alex Marquez on vocals. Now, there's a guy that we're not used to seeing on vocals. We're used to seeing him sit. You got us all messed up with this band, Gus. People are all over.
I think that's what made it so fun for us, because we all got out of our comfort zone, or at least me and Alex got out. Alex played drums on one song called Praise the Beast, which, again, like from the second that song starts, it's Alex on the drums. Like, that dude's got his own voice. And but again, like it was just cool to like kind of be, play a different role, put on a different hat, and throw it against the wall and see if it sticks, see if people like it.
But what was Alex's reaction when you're like, "Hey, Alex, we want you to sing"? Because I know he's had health problems in the past with his legs and whatever, so it must have been kind of nice for him to be like, "Oh, no problemo."
Yeah, I mean, for him, it's interesting. Like, him and I did a project maybe a decade ago now, where we were doing like a more heavy metal kind of a thing, and he actually has like a good heavy metal voice, which to me, I figured, yeah, he probably has a good thrash voice. And at first, we had recorded like 3 or 4 Creative Kill songs, and he was doing it kind of with a more hardcore vibe. And then one day I just said, dude, can you do like a Creator Exodus kind of screaming thing? And we recorded a song called Creative Kill. That was the first song we had done for him, doing this different style of vocal. And just after the first verse, I was like, yes, that is exactly what I'm talking about. And it was just cool. It was fun. And I like I said, I think we all had a really good time doing it,
And now, did Alex write the lyrics for this?
Yes, the three songs that Matt Harvey did guest vocals on were obviously his lyrics, but Alex wrote his lyrics.
And so, what are some of the subject matters and that these songs deal with?
It's the same thing. It's basically death metal because to me that's like Pleasure to Kill. Necrophobic, like all the old thrash songs that I really loved, the subject matter was basically death metal, and this record is just full of songs about murder and destruction and, nothing happy, nothing. It's a pretty grim, it's a grim, and that's what, and I think that's what really, when Rain and Blood came out, that's where I think, guys like Chuck heard that record and were like, dude, I'm gonna play as fast as these guys and write lyrics like this, but I'm gonna sing that shit where I sound like the fucking devil. You know what I mean? Right. So, it's really, really kind of a very precursor to what death metal pretty much is.
And so how long did it take you guys to record all this?
It was like a total. I would write a song, and I have my own recording studio, and I play bass, drums, and guitar. So I literally would just shit it out in like a day. You know what I mean? I would come here and spend probably 8 to 10 hours. I would track a guitar to a click track, then I would record drums, and I would retrack all the guitars, track a bass. Spend a bunch of time doing the solos, and then, I'd call Alex, and Alex would come in, and then, that song would get shelved. And then, a couple weeks later or a month later, I'd write another one. So it's like, it just kind of they just kind of happened.
And where did you go? I mean, did you guys do the mixing and mastering and all of that? Who did that for you?
I mixed it. And then Robert Koch from Disavowed mastered it.
Mm-hmm. Now, tell us about the label that you're signed to, Gus.
So, Repulsive Echo is a label out of Greece, and Kostas is the guy that runs it. And him and I have been, Facebook friends for a long time. And I think I may have even chatted with him years ago about this too. And I sent him a song, and he thought it was really great. And, now that I finished the record, the level of enthusiasm that he has for this album, I just can't, I could have maybe shopped it to another label or whatever, and, and ran the risk of someone be like, yeah, it's cool. It's got a lot of names on it. We'll put it out. Cool. But Kostas is like, dude, this record's the fucking best thing ever, and whether anybody else believes that or thinks that or not, like, to have the guy that's going to release it, to have that much enthusiasm for it, that to me has a lot more value than, and I didn't need a lot of money. Really, I have my own recording studio, so I didn't need a big budget or anything. So, he found the absolute best album cover. Like, I literally couldn't have asked for a more perfect album cover. And that came from, he found it. And, he's just been really, really great in a lot of ways, like also a member of the band, and, has a lot of ideas and in marketing and whatever. And, and I consult him, and, it's been a really cool relationship thus far.
Now, is this going to be strictly a studio project, or do you think at some point you'd like to go out and play some shows and stuff?
Well, in a perfect world, I need like 10,000 more people to think like Kostas does. And, because it just logistically, for me to take a band on the road at this stage of the game in my life, like, I can't go on tour and, like, for no money kind of a thing, because I'm an adult and, I have bills to pay or whatever. But if the demand was enough, man, I would kill to go on tour playing guitar and, like, have a, you know what I mean? Like, cool, you know what I mean? Like, every time I go on tour, dude, it's like pedals, triggers, snare drum, all this shit I got to bring. Meanwhile, it's like guitar players like, yeah, I got my guitar, some cables. Cool.
Where do I plug it in?
Right. Yeah, I'm cool. You know what I mean? So I would love to experience what that's like. It would be interesting, though, to think probably like 2 or 3 shows into it, I'd be like, man, maybe I want to play some drums. I don't know. I don't know how that would go, but right now I'm on like a massive guitar kick, and I've just been playing a ton of guitar. So, you know, I'd be pretty stoked about taking this band out of the studio and into something more, you know, substantial.
So this album is digitally released already, and the physical release is going to be at the end of the month. So where can people go pick up the digital release for now, Gus?
The digital release is at Bandcamp. You know, I guess it's probably like Bandcamp/Create-A-Kill. And, you know, and Costas, Repulsive set that up for me, and that was super cool. And, but if you want physical copies, Repulsive is doing CDs at first, and, you know, shirts and hat bundles and whatnot, and apparently notebooks, so you could write your favorite, you know, scribble your favorite band logos on it. And then eventually we're going to do some vinyl.
So what sites are best then for people to learn more about the band? I know that your record label, Repulsive Echo, posts a lot about that, but do you also have any kind of websites or Facebook page?
There's a Create-A-Kill Facebook page. Just, you know, searching on Facebook, Create-A-Kill. And then the Bandcamp page, if you can literally hear the entire record on there, even if you don't buy it, you can listen to it. I haven't checked all the torrent sites. I'm sure somebody's already ripped it off and whatever, but honestly, you know, I just want people to hear this record. So, you know, obviously I believe in it. I think if you want to hear thrash metal that is devoid of any joy and you know, and like sheen and that, like, you know what I mean? Like to me, the record that I really wanted to emulate was the Dark Angel Leave Scars album. I mean, that is just such a gritty, ugly, but fuck, so aggressive. And, you know, I didn't come close to it, but I tried, and I think if you like that stuff, hopefully you like this stuff.
So, Gus, what kind of drums are you currently playing?
I have been a Tama endorser since 2010, so 8 years now.
And why do you prefer them?
Because all of my heroes growing up played Tama drums. I mean, the reason I picked up a pair of drumsticks is because of Dave Lombardo and, you know, Rain and Blood. And, you know, to me, his name was always synonymous with this brand, and obviously Lars Ulrich, and I think at the time even Louis Clemente from Testament was playing Tama drums, like Charlie Benante. It's just Tama's got this history of, you know, being almost synonymous with aggressive, heavy music. And, you know, when you see that logo on a kick drum, and there's 2 kick drums on that stage, to me that just says, dude, I'm here to play fucking heavy metal music. You know what I mean? And the company's been great to me, and they do. They make fucking fantastic sounding drums, and I'm super honored and stoked to be associated with them.
So what is your current setup, Gus?
I have been playing Sabian cymbals officially since 1998.
Whoa.
So what is it, 20 years now I've been playing those cymbals?
Whoa, you're an old man.
I'm, there's some gray, I had no gray hair when I started, we'll say that. I'm an Evans drumhead artist and a Vic Firth drumstick artist as well. And Ultimate Ears, in-ear monitor systems.
And now, are you a self-taught drummer?
For the first 5 years, I was self-taught, and this is an interesting, funny story. In 1995, this long-haired kid from Long Island, or from Rochester, came down, and him and Phil came to my warehouse. Yeah, this is 1990, maybe 94, 95, a long, long time ago. And I didn't know who this dude was, and he just sits down behind my kit and just starts, like, tapping him. And I go, hey, dude, if you're a drummer, go ahead. And he proceeded to fucking destroy my drum kit. But he looked like he could have been, like, chewing gum and, like, you know, doing his taxes. He just looked so free of stress and like effort. And that dude's name was Dave Kulros. And I immediately went up to him and I go, dude, do you give fucking drum lessons? And I studied with him for a while before he moved back to New York. And he really kind of, I remember I sat down, you know, at our first lesson, I sat down to play. And he watched me for probably, like, I'm not even kidding you, like 10 or 15 seconds. He goes, get up, dude. Like, you know, this is going to be a page one rewrite. And really, I did. I had to start from pretty much scratch. I was kind of doing it all wrong. Like, I knew how to play in time and all that stuff, but my technique was just atrocious. And Dave really set me on the right path with technique. And then in about 1996, I was super fortunate to meet Sean Reiner, and then I studied with him for a while before he moved to California. And he was a guy that, like, at that point I'd already had a good foundation, and that guy just like cracked my head open and just filled it with all of this stuff that I just did not understand. So I would say that Dave Kulros got me started on the absolute right path. But Sean really helped shape me into the drummer I am today. And to this day, you know, Sean's probably my best friend, and you know, Dave has been a good friend of mine ever since those days too. So I'm super fortunate and grateful that I was able to have those two dudes in my life at the right time.
So would you advise then people that are just like self-taught drummers to like maybe take a lesson or two just to see what the hell's going on?
100%. You know, the thing is too is I didn't have YouTube when I was a kid.
Right, yeah.
And, you know, I remember a lot of my lessons, I would ask Dave and both Sean, dude, can you guys just like play and let me watch you? Because, you know, drums are a physical instrument and you can learn a lot by watching body movements and then just mimic them. You know what I mean? You can get really well on your way from watching YouTube, and then some guidance, you know, just a few lessons here and there would be great, you know, and especially if you want to learn something more than just blast beats and fast double bass. You know, I'm a big fan of having a wide vocabulary on the drums. You know, like I've been fortunate that for the last probably 20 years of my life, I've been a full-time drummer, and at home I play in like a top 40 dance classic rock kind of band, and I'm playing everything from you know, Lady Gaga to like, you know, Sweet Home Alabama or whatever, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I really wanted to be able to sit down behind a drum kit and kind of make my way through just about anything that anybody could call me for.
And what are some things that drummers can do to like build up speed as well as endurance, you know, both leg endurance and wrist endurance?
For speed, I'm a big fan of the metronome. The metronome is your friend. And if let's just say your top double bass speed playing 16 notes is, let's say 160, you know, then you set your metronome up. If that's your top, I would dial it back to like 145 to 150. And, you know, really concentrate on each stroke with each foot. I'm a big fan of practicing without triggers, so you can concentrate on the velocity and the consistency between the feet. And then, you know, just throttle up the metronome every, you know, a little bit, you know, even once you get over 200, 210, 220, you'd be, you know, to go, if 220 is your top and you push that thing to 224, you're going to feel it, like, big time. So I think it's the same thing for your hands. Just, you know, get a practice pad out and you know, concentrate on each stroke with each hand. You know, if you're at the beginning of your journey on the drums, from the get-go, give equal time and effort into each limb, so you have consistency throughout the four limbs. You know, like paradiddles are a great rudiment to practice on your hands because each hand does the exact same thing. And then you can start throwing in things like work on your velocities and your sound pressure levels. You can if you're playing a single stroke roll at 180 BPM really, really hard, try playing the same tempo, but now really try to grace the notes, and that's where you get control.
And Gus, when you first got your drum kit, did you have a double bass at first, or did you integrate that in later?
The first drum kit I sat behind was literally a little 20-inch kick, one rack tom, and a snare drum, and I think maybe a hi-hat. That's it. And it was my buddy Chris's drum kit, and I would literally go over his house every day after school because, he was the only dude I knew that had a drum kit. And then his mom, found a second blue sparkle kick drum at a garage sale, and I remember, at school he was like, dude, I got another kick drum. And, when I sat behind two bass drums, I mean, that to me was just, I remember the first time I saw a real double bass kit, in real life at a store. To this day, to me, two kick drums just is the fucking awesomest thing in the world. I'm not dogging guys that plays double pedal on one kick drum or anything, but right. To me, it's just, it's just a vibe. Obviously at home, when I'm playing gigs here locally, I'm using literally a 16-inch floor tom that I converted into a kick drum. I use a 12-inch tom for a floor tom and a snare drum. That's it. I think it's good to be able to sit down behind most any drum kit and play, but if you can have two kick drums and you want to play some heavy metal music, fuck yeah.
And now, what technique do you use when playing double bass?
I swivel. It's interesting. I swivel at mid-tempo more than I kind of do at high tempos. It's kind of a mix. I have some sciatic issues, so the mid-tempo stuff to me can start to bother me, so I have to really lower my center of gravity. And the swiveling at the mid-tempo really helps me. And then when I get going fast, I just kind of, and I think guys like George from Nile really cover this stuff pretty well in some of their YouTube videos where, when you're going at a certain tempo, you're using your whole leg, and then as you speed up, you use less and less of that, and you start to use more of just from the knee down, and then as you get going really fast, you're really just going from your ankle down. So it's kind of a mix of several of those techniques. I cannot do it anywhere near as fast as George, but I certainly try.
And now also, Gus, being a drummer for so long, you've seen improvements in gear and equipment and all that kind of stuff. So you probably throughout your lifetime had a lot of time to go through different pedals and the such. So what are your favorite pedals to use?
It's funny you say that. I am the stark opposite of that whole statement.
Damn it.
Seriously, I used to use, my first set of bass drum pedals were Camcos, which is what Lombardo used, which is what Charlie Benante used, Gene Hoglan, everybody rolled with the Camcos. And then in 95, when Tama introduced the Iron Cobra, I was working in a drum shop at the time, and when they came in, I was just like, holy shit, this is a Camco pedal, but that I can adjust infinitely. You know what I mean? You can raise and lower the footboard independently from the beater angle and so forth and so on. And I have been playing the Iron Cobra pedal since 1995. And today I have the most recent version of it, which I think are the best ones yet. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. The same pedal that I used to play in Gruesome is the same pedal I go and I play, fucking Billie Jean every night here at home. I have one pedal that I do everything on.
And what is the best pedal angle for you, and do you have to kind of adjust it if you want to go faster or anything like that?
No, I have it to where there is a fair amount of travel and my springs aren't super tight. I just get to where the pedal has a fulcrum point, And when you find it, you just know how to, you hit it the right way, and the pedal does a lot of the work for you. But I will say that I've worked basically since probably 2004, so 4 years now. I got to say, I mean, I've been working really hard on my consistency without triggers, and hitting the bass drum. To me still, and maybe this shows my age, but it's important to me. It's important to me that I can go on tour, and if my trigger module blows up or whatever, I can still play my gig. And, and again, that's probably an antiquated or old school philosophy, but that's just how I am. So my pedals are, like I said, they're set up, they don't have like the super swing that, like I know some guys that play DW 5000s, and if you hit their pedal, it's like, that's like really a heavy pedal. Mine aren't really that heavy, but they're not quite like when you sit down behind someone that's playing an Axis pedal, like I just don't feel those things under my feet. And I like to feel the pedal under my feet.
Well, I've actually talked to a couple of drummers that have the same mentality. Of course, they are older drummers as well. I think this is something you kind of... But triggering, I guess, is kind of important when you play live anyways, because it just it's louder. And, depending on what your sound guy is going to be like or whatever, I personally... Being an older person, too, and going to a lot of shows, you could definitely tell when they're triggered, it comes across so clear. But sometimes I have been to shows where the triggers have blown out, and I can't fucking hear the dude at all. So, right. And there's, like, panic, and I've even been to shows where they've stopped,
I'm certainly not going to sit here and name names and talk shit about anybody, because that's just not my style. But I know I've heard stories where a trigger module fries or whatever, or blows up, and then show's over.
Right.
And I just, again, obviously it's an age thing, but when I started playing drums, there were no triggers.
Right.
Like, you had to hit your bass drums, and to this day, Dave Lombardo doesn't use triggers, and Charlie Benante doesn't use triggers. So like, and I do use triggers live, but it's more so a thing where, I don't play in a giant band, so I don't have my own sound guy, and I can't spend, especially in a festival setting.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
The new Roland TM2 module, you can load your own sound into it, so I literally made a sample of my actual kick drum. I EQ'd it the way that I want it, and I can show up to every gig or any gig in the world and tell the sound guy, hey, listen, just turn the fader up. You don't even need to EQ or anything. This is ready to go, and it really is a much easier thing, and the guys in the band prefer it because, there's a lot of clarity. Mm-hmm. But it's not my crutch.
Right.
Like, if it were to go on me, throw mics in there, let's finish the show. Like, I have that in the, in the back pocket. You know what I'm saying?
So what's coming up for you guys now in all your bands? You have a little tour coming up with Gruesome?
We are doing what I've dubbed the Matt Suicide shows next week, where Exhumed and Gruesome are playing the same night. We're doing that for 3 shows, so it's 2 shows in Florida, and then both bands are playing Brutal Obscene Extreme in Europe, and then Gruesome stays over there for another 4 weeks or so. We're playing Vakken, we're playing Party Sand. We're playing Stonehenge and another few festivals, and then a bunch of club headline shows.
So that's pretty cool that you get to play all those festivals, because then you're just hitting a lot of people at once. Because it's like you said, you are adults and you do have other jobs. So.
Well, the interesting thing with Gruesome, and if I can just say something about that for 1 second,
sure.
Like. I see all the comments where everybody's like, oh, these guys are cashing in. And it's like, listen, dude, I still will come home from this tour. I think I come home on like a Sunday. Wednesday of that week, I'm packing up a drum kit into my car and driving to a bar or a club, and I'm fucking going back to work. Like, we're making enough money to where we're not going to like come home broke. but no one's getting rich doing this, and the
Right.
proof is in the pudding. Like, we're not going on tour for a year straight. We're doing 4 weeks, and then that's the end of that. Like, Matt's going out on tour with Exhumed, and, you know, I'm sure Possessed is doing stuff, and Robin's going to be working for the entire heavy metal world. And, you know, we're not, no one's getting rich doing this band, you know what I mean? But we do have to make enough to where, you know, we have to pay for our fucking flights to Europe, and
Of
that's
course.
$5,000 something.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we have to do it as adults, but no one's doing this because this isn't our cash cow.
Right. And there you guys have it. I mean, I'm sure we could talk about drums and metal all day long, but we only got a 2-hour show here. And Gus, thank you for coming on the show, introducing us to Create a Kill, telling us a little bit about your drumming practices, and as always, it's been a pleasure. And stay safe out there on tour, and all the best with the new album from Create a Kill.
Thank you. Thank everybody listening, and hopefully we'll see you out there on the road.